So when we ask the question, what is quality, I think there are some research questions which flow from that. And these, in some ways, these are the sorts of questions that we want to address, that we think need to be addressed in academic research, and that we will seek to do in the work that we're doing it. First of all, why are policy makers concerned with quality? Why is it that that's come on to the policy agenda, and what do the policy makers think they mean by that? And to some extent, we need to interrogate their discourse, and we need to ask questions of them about why they think quality is important, because it may well be that what the policymakers think they mean by quality is not necessarily the same thing as third sector organisations are engaging, measuring in some of their processes. Secondly, how is this translated into support for funding and regulation? What are the procedures by which quality is being assessed, is being defined and is being measured and is being assessed in third sector organisations? How is quality measured procedurally? How is it being done? By whom is it being done? And what sort of factors and measures are used to do that? And flowing on from that then, some further research questions about the extent to which third sector organisations have independent definitions and measurements of their activity. To what extent are third sector organisations seeking, independently of their funding relationship, independently of the contracts or the grants that they've got, seeking to define and measure quality? And where do they get those definitions of quality from? To what extent are they internal or externally derived? Do we ask users of services what they think the quality should be? Do we ask citizens and taxpayers more generally what they think quality should be? So to what extent are the procedures and the definitions and from that the procedures that we currently use, to what extent are those internally or external forms of measurement, and how do we seek to get different forms of definition from different stakeholders within the organisation? So I think in part to answer the question, what is quality, we need to consider whose question it is. For whom is quality an issue, and who is it who is asking for some definition and measurement of quality? To what extent is it an issue for producers? Well, I suppose I should first of all have on there funders. For what extent is it an issue for funders? Why are funders concerned with quality? To what extent is it an issue for producers, for organisations delivering services or providing support? To what extent is it an issue for users, the people who use those services or access those organisations? And to what extent is it a question for citizens? And it may be that those different stakeholders in the process have different perceptions of what quality is and different notions of why it might be important. And who is it, perhaps amongst those different stakeholders, who is it who's leading the discourse on what is quality? Is it policymakers? Is it national agencies? Is it third sector organisations? Is it users? Is it local citizens? My hypothesis is that that's probably a hierarchical order, that is predominantly policymakers who are defining quality, that it's national agencies who play a key role in taking that forward, and that individual third sector organisations, still less their users, still less the local citizens, are a less powerful voice in that discourse. That's a hypothesis. We will see as we explore those research questions in more detail. But I think it's certainly the case that you may expect a different concern from those different stakeholders. So, sorry, there we go. So I think by problematising the question of why quality matters to policymakers, by turning it into a research question, which we think needs to be looked at and which we will spend some of our research time exploring, we'll need to reconcile the different perspectives and different definitions, the different perspectives of different communities who have a concern with what quality means, the different definitions that they may provide about quality, and the different forms and aims of third sector organisations in seeking to implement, in seeking to first of all explore what quality means for them, and then implement means of defining and measuring it. In other words, the notion of quality may not be a single outcome, capable of a single definition and measurable by a single mechanism. So I'm sorry if that's made things more complicated rather than simpler. It doesn't mean that the question is any the less important. What it does mean, I think, and particularly, as I say, as academics, it's important that we do, is reflect upon who it is who's producing the definitions, and to what extent those are compatible or not compatible with the different concerns that third sector organisations may have. There's a few more slides on here about the nature of the Third Sector Research Centre more generally. Do you want me to go through them quickly? Yeah, I'll just spend a little bit of time telling you briefly who we are, although you can find out more on our website. We have a temporary website at the moment, but soon it'll be a permanent website. You can access it at tsrc.ac.uk. Or if you can just Google TSRC for Third Sector Research Centre, it should now take you there. When we first started, I tried to Google TSRC to see what it would find, and I came up with some Tobacco Research Council in the middle of in the Midwest in the United States. So we quickly bought the domain name. So we're funded partly by the Economic and Social Research Council, which is an academic the government's academic research council for social science research, by the OTS, the Office of the Third Sector, and by the Barrow Cadbury Trust, a third sector organisation, a foundation trust that provides funding. In particular, is concerned with the extent to which third sector organisations more generally and our research addresses the issues of social division and the access of marginalised communities to third sector activity. We're formally based at the University of Birmingham, where I'm based as a centre director. I also work closely with my deputy, John Mohan, who's based at the University of Southampton. Much of the statistical work is done at Southampton. They've got the major national statistics research centre there. We've also got involvement from Jeremy Kendall, my colleague I mentioned before, who's based at Kent, and a colleague, Fergus Lyon, at Middlesex, who's leading research on social enterprise. One of the other questions we want to ask within the centre is to what extent social enterprise and social enterprises are a distinct feature within the third sector, and whether there is something about social enterprise which contributes something different to other aspects of the third sector. I suspect that will also not be an easy or a simple question to answer. We've got a series of research programmes. We're mapping the evidence base, trying to find out what we currently know. We're asking some theoretical and policy questions to some extent, as I was doing today. We'll engage in extensive mapping and measuring. We're gathering statistical data about the sector. We're developing longitudinal analysis of a sample of third sector organisations to tell us about organisational dynamics. And we'll engage in a range of research to ask questions about the extent to which we can measure the impact of third sector organisations. Some of those issues, again, that I was raising today. To what extent can we identify how we might measure impact? And finally, we are committed to what the ESRC term called knowledge transfer. I think we're increasingly calling knowledge exchange, and that is making sure that the research that we do is available and accessible to a wide range of users to avoid appearing like the cross with the member of the mafia. It's a commitment that we have, and of course that is supported by our funders. We will engage in dissemination and engagement through a series of advisory and reference groups that we're setting up, and through capacity building, through support for research being done by other academics and by third sector organisations. And we've got a knowledge exchange team, 2 people we've appointed who are working out of the NCVO offices in London, but have a much wider remit. They're not just they're not NCVO staff, they're our staff. NCVO are just providing them with a base. So there is a commitment over time to ensuring that our knowledge is exchanged with a wide range of research users such as yourselves. It's still early days, but fairly soon our new website will be up and running, and we'll start posting our findings on that, and we'll also be directing users of the website to other research. We won't just be publicising our own research, we'll be guiding people to other useful research that's been done. Okay, thank you.